All right. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Built to Scale. And we are continuing our AI series. That last episodes we had on Ryan Seifert, who runs a technology consulting firm, and really deep dived into what are some best practices to consider AI implementation at enterprise scale in your organization. And basically, in summary, what does that mean? That just how do you actually get good ROI with AI on enterprise level activities, not just that you got your sales guy over there doing, some little AI and chat GPT stuff, right? How do you actually deploy it across an organization? And today we have on another guest that we are going deeper dive into AI. Our guest today is Skyler Stuckey, that he is the Chief Innovation Officer at Gray Reed, which is a law firm. And I was really interested on having Skyler on today because the combination of AI application legal wise for construction businesses is really relevant to talk about. That's one thing that how to harness and use the tools, but how do you legally protect yourself? But Skyler's role is super unique in that it's a law firm that has chosen to place him in a role where he is trying to figure out how to deploy technologies and AI at scale. And this could be a consideration for you as a construction business owner, right? That somebody that takes this initiative and that leads the accountability and the charge for it. So super excited to dive in today with you, Skyler. That really grateful to have you on the podcast.
No, yeah, and thanks for the invitation. I'm grateful to be here too. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about yourself. That I gave that introduction to the audience, but what would you like to share about yourself for the audience?
Yeah. I think you kind of made the point that my firm has kind of put me in a unique role. I think it's helpful to understand how I got from sort of A to B. I've been a practicing lawyer for almost 15 years now. So not at the end of the career, not at the beginning, somewhere in the middle. I have worked in Dallas, Fort Worth for all 15 of those years, grew up here in Texas, Texas native. So this has always sort of been home. I worked at a boutique here in Dallas first doing pure litigation. Then I worked for one of the big national shops that's centered in New York, but that was also here in the Dallas Fort Worth marketplace. But that was 1,000 lawyers, 40 offices, kind of everywhere. And then found my home as a lawyer, which is at Gray Reed. And Gray Reed is a Texas-focused, Texas-only, mid-size, strong regional firm. We're about 160 lawyers, officed in Houston, Dallas, and Waco. Our main offices being Dallas and Houston. And so 160 lawyers, we're kind of that sweet spot of big enough to do national, international stuff we need to, but small enough that we still know all of our partners, know our clients personally, and are more of a relationship driven, trust driven kind of, the law firm next door, so to speak. But over the last 5 years, we've also grown in technological capabilities. We've scaled what we can do to do some bigger stuff. I think to get to where I am now, I've been a partner here at the firm for about 6 years. And we, like a lot of sort of mid-sized businesses or large to mid-cap businesses, we're trying to figure out what the heck to do with AI, what the heck to do with technology because it was moving so fast. And you're hearing, everything from the doomsday to scenario to the it's gonna, do all of our work for us scenario. And I think like a lot of companies, we put together a committee. That committee was people that did not have a technological or AI background that were just sort of interested, threw us in a room once every 30 or 45 days to kind of talk about what was going on and come up with plans. But those plans had to be submitted to the board, and the board only met quarterly. And so you were on this sort of lag. And more often than not, we were having meetings talking about things that we wish we'd done the prior quarter or things that we wished we had already submitted to the board. Also, most of the committee was volunteer lawyers who were super busy and didn't really have time to go home and learn a new skill or become a computer coder or do anything else. And I was using AI in my own practice, and had sort of those light bulb moments of like, oh, this is not just something to summarize documents with. This is not just something to check the grammar in my email with. This is a real practice based tool for what I do. And took it upon myself to spend like 3 months doing online courses through Stanford Law School at night and other agentic focus courses to like get really kind of in the weeds on this. And went to the board here at the firm and kind of made the business case for we should have somebody in the chair paying attention to this on a daily basis. because it's too important and moving too fast for a volunteer committee or a volunteer group to give us the results we deserve as a firm based on our investment level and the cost and everything else. And kudos to Gray Reed. They saw the business case as well, but we're really drawn to the idea that we weren't bringing in somebody from the outside who didn't know our culture, didn't know our business, didn't know our needs to like teach us about this stuff. We were using sort of a homegrown talent, and I feel weird to call myself a talent, a homegrown guy uh, who knew the culture, knew the business, knew how to navigate the personalities, and wasn't um, talking like a tech vendor or an IT person, but was meeting our lawyers where they were in their practice. And that was a huge like watershed moment for us that I'd been here, I knew things, I knew our people. And so to now I'm now serving in a hybrid role where I'm still practicing on a reduced sort of billable targets kind of thing for the lawyers in the room that might know what billable targets are. But the firm has given me sort of breathing room and space within my duties to take this flag and run with it here as innovation officer.
I love that whole story, that summary, because it leads into so much that I think what is unique is a lot of organizations may look at, okay, like, should I have a role that is really driving this forward, or somebody that I has accountability about, what are the initiatives to drive this forward? And they may immediately look to the most techie person in the room, right? Or they may look to hiring an outside tech person. But from what you said, I'm not getting the perception like you may be tech forward, but you're not a technologist by trade. And you are the one, pushing the agenda going forward. What do you think are the pros to that? What do you think are the cons to that?
It's you accurately assessed. I was a theater major in college of all things. I was like, a video game nerd, so I was, I guess, tech forward, but I was not a computer science major. I wasn't a coding guy. I'm in my early 40s though, so I did grow up around computers and the internet, and so I was tech comfortable. Um, and law firms have the joy of, we've got baby lawyers that are, their late 20s, and we've got senior partners that are in their 70s. So you've got a wide variety to assess. Um, so I was tech comfortable, but not an IT guy. Um, the pro there is kind of the my earlier point. Lawyers, for those who have had the misfortune of hanging around us, are really, really horrible about not taking advice from anyone who's not a lawyer about anything we do. It's just immediately discounted. It's just immediately cordoned off into, oh, that's a tech guy, that's an IT guy, that's a computer science gal, that's whomever. They don't know what my daily life is like. They've never been to a courtroom. They don't know. So the pro is that I have instant credibility with our key workforce. And just to be 100% clear, our firm is made up of multiple teams, not just lawyers, that are intrinsic to what we do. But the lawyers are driving the dollars in the door, so they get an outside sort of say in what we do and an outside opinion of how valuable they are around here. So you kind of have to cater to that, that critical mass. Uh, Having somebody who had credibility when I walk in the room with them, because I've been practicing in the trenches alongside them every day for 11 years, and I have helped them win cases and defend emotions and win clients. Um, it's easier for me to walk in the room and say, "Here's the tool you should use, and here's how we're going to do it as a firm going forward," because they have the understanding that um, I know what I'm talking about. This is going to help you lawyer. Go do lawyer things. Um, the con is that there are probably times that I am a bottleneck because I do have to go double check something on tech. I do have to go double check with our IT guy. I say that whoever is in this chair should be double checking that stuff anyway, even if they know this area really well, because you may not have a sense of how busy your accounting team is right now. And guess what? When you integrate this new timekeeping software, there's going to be an integration phase where this outside vendor needs to integrate with your accounting team on your client matter numbers. And so the I think being confident in this role is really helpful. Being overconfident in this role is really dangerous. And so by not having a tech background, I think it kind of helps me check myself and double check my homework on what I'm bringing in the door, making sure I understand, what SOC 2 compliance is and if HIPAA counts enough for our healthcare team. and working with our IT specialists that have candidly been data security specialists for years without us even realizing it as a law firm. And there are those sort of like skill sets hidden in your teams across a business and your operations that you may not realize. And so for me, stepping back from my pure practice role and looking at a holistic role for the whole firm has helped educate me about even how our own operations work. And so, I mean, there are times that I absolutely wish I had a background that I instantly understood stuff. The sort of gift of current AI is that most of the time I can drop a question to that and get educated really fast on it. Um, one of the sayings that we like laugh about around here a lot with AI is that like if you are intellectually curious and you really want to understand something, there has never been a more powerful tool than AI. But if you are the exact opposite and you do not give a crap about actually understanding anything, you just want the work done, there's never been a more powerful tool than AI. And so we have been using it a lot around here at the law firm. But one of the things that I use it for the most is like educating myself on my blind spots and blank spaces and being able to ask, like, explain X topic to me about technology. So then when I go have the conversation with our IT team, I understand the lexicon. I know what we're talking about, at least enough to be a helpful, productive part of that conversation.
I mean, I can just tell we've known each other for a short period of time, but at the same point, um, I mean, what I'm really extracting from what you're saying or what I can summarize, but even what I can tell, like, how you carry yourself, like even probably the theater major aspect of it too, right? Of just like the nature of and being able to not just know the systems, but like how do you actually affect change? And that means that you have to have reliability and you have to have good rapport and a good relationship with all the team members involved in order to influence them too, right? That, I mean, it's one thing that you can come up with an idea for how a tool should exist. And it's pretty, like, I will say, what's cool about AI is you can show the value of it pretty quick. Like you can like literally do the live example and ideally you'd get buy-in pretty quick, right? But at the same point, there's still that process of going and getting buy-in. Like old habits die hard, and so you may have team members that are stuck in old ways, and you really want them to progress towards using particular tools because it's the most effective thing. It's the way that your firm is, looking to do things in the future. But like technologists, and I don't mean to put such a bias, but like we even had our previous, episode or podcast guests that, he spoke about that sometimes your best champion is not the technologist, right? And, the idea that you can make headway is sometimes the person that, just knows how to get along with everybody, not only knows the systems, but knows how to manage the relationships. And like, that's how you're actually going to affect the change too. And I'm just seeing elements of that in you and how you carry yourself. And it feels like that's a really relevant thing to have success with this too. Would you agree?
100%. And I think like my strongest skill as a lawyer and whatever I do is like is my people skills. It's my EQ. It is, I think, a piece of that theater major in me of this whole thing is the human experience, right? Everybody has their own stress going on, has their own workflow issues going on, and coming in and shoving technology down their throat for technology's sake is not a way to win over, believers to the cause. And so I think one of the biggest things that I see go wrong in these situations is like absolute forced adoption, and you're going to be judged by how often you use this tool, and in your year-end review for your compensation raise, give me 5 examples of how you use AI. Like, the whole I say over and over, like, literally before we came on this podcast, I was sending an email to our entire firm about, an agent we built to help our lawyers remember how to use our templates to make PowerPoint, so they're making less work for our marketing team, because it's about increasing the pie for everybody and making the whole ship sail smoother, right? But I opened that email with, like, "I view my first task as chief innovation officer to improve everyone's life here at this firm." And so when you meet people on like the human level with this very non-human thing, this thing that's gonna like ape human like thought, I think it makes it a little bit less intimidating and frustrating. And we've had this conversation several times internally that as as these AI tools get better and more pervasive, they're going to bring like the skill floor up across the board, and that's going to be like table stakes now. So what's really going to differentiate businesses and law firms and construction companies is the human touch they have with their clients and internally. And so like that's where I really focus everything I do here, from messaging to training to like the tone of the emails I send out is meant to be not here comes AI, use it out or else, but hey friends, we're here together, let's get better at this, right? And so just bringing that kind of I try to overlay that thought process and memory bank on everything I do here.
No, it makes total sense. I think, to kind of dive in a little bit, I mean, you're looking at innovation, especially for your law firm, but at the same point, our audience, construction business owners, I guess I'm just interested. Like, I've gone to construction trade shows, and the problem is this: there's a million, AI tools out there, and I hate to get a little bit, stuck in the weeds on tools, et cetera, because also too, they're changing all the time. Like one's coming ahead of the other all the time. I mean, and who knows if the federal government's going to allow the next one to come out, right? So, but like, what do you find are some of the technologies that are really relevant for you today, and why have you chosen them? Like, and I guess I'm looking for kind of, workflows. Like, what have you found is working really well? And I think especially I'm interested because you're looking at it from a lawyer's perspective. Like, that's still the thing that even scares me, Skyler, is that we're financial experts. I'm still very weary of running clients' data through particular AI tools. And so I'm just so interested to understand from a lawyer's perspective, like, what are the tools that you like to use? Why, et cetera, et cetera? Like, what are some of the data security provisions behind them that make you feel comfortable as a lawyer? I'd love to walk through that.
And it's like perfect question in this space, regardless of your business, because as a business, we deal in trust with our clients, right? They're trusting us with their um, most important problems, their key information, their proprietary info, their deepest, darkest secrets and thoughts, candidly, with attorney-client privilege. So we have to come at it from a data protection first stance, and so. I, I, our current governance for AI in the firm is that if firm business is going to touch anything that is AI related, we only use enterprise level enterprise grade accounts. So nobody here at the firm has a personal account for anything. Nobody here is allowed to use a personal individual account that is AI driven for any firm business. So we have only enterprise level accounts that at enterprise level, meaning only they're company wide, and the company has the account with the vendor, but that allows you to have admin control over data protection from the top down. So you're not having to go, have your employees promise you they've turned off data, toggles back at their home account. And I'll tell you, we got some pushback there because I think this is true of everything that any company that's more than 5, 10 people, you've got a bell curve of users of anything, or a bell curve of comfort. So we had in 150 160 lawyers, you've got 15 lawyers that don't know how to set the clock on their VCR, and you've got 15 lawyers that have been using Claude Pro at home to build out giant financial models internally. And the folks on this end don't care, but people that have had a year and a half of experience building their own AI stuff at home were like, what do you mean I can't use my person? And we had to sit down with that group and basically say, this decision is not about you. It's about 160 singular points of failure, right? Any lawyer that puts client information into a free chat GPT chatbot that doesn't have data training turned off has just waived privilege of that client. And guess what? The entire firm is now subject to a malpractice claim. So this is not about highest and best use. It's about safest and smartest use. And so for us as lawyers, that's always paramount. Like literally today, I am test driving like an AI transcription tool for meetings, but it's one that provides an enterprise level account. It's SOC 2 compliant, it's HIPAA 2 compliant, it's ISCO compliant. And all those compliances are great. That doesn't mean attorney-client privilege, right? And so we have to come at it with an extra layer of confidentiality. And what does it mean for your data if it's processed by a third party, even if it's encrypted? Does that matter? So these have been questions we've wrestled with a whole lot. And so point one for us is enterprise level administrative control over all the data. So you have absolute certainty that every piece of information touching anything that's being used, there's no data being retained by the model. There's no training on the model. There's encryption at rest and in transit. And if your audience hasn't dealt with that, like a lot of these tools, okay, the super easy example for this that I had to explain to all of our partners, there's been a proliferation of like e-ink tablets, like the Remarkable or the Flynote Pro, things like this that you can write your notes down on instead of carrying paper around. Well, a lot of those lets you push a button and transform your handwritten notes into text. What a lot of people don't realize is that that's not actually happening on the device. It's being sent into the cloud and back to the device. And for most of these, it's happening on a free version of ChatGPT or Gemini that is not encrypted, not safe. And you, as a lawyer, have just shared all your notes, which are probably a conversation with your client with a third party. And so we had to, I literally was giving this talk, in front of all of our partners, and I watched like five lawyers like close their tablets and push them down and be like, wait a minute. And now there are models of this that are safe to use. We just had to develop a white list of which ones those are, and do the back end research and tell our lawyers, look, you're going to have an approved version of this that the firm has vetted that our IT department can support, but you're not going on Amazon and buying the next one you see. We literally had a lawyer buy one of these and come ask me about using it. Well, the company that makes it is on the US watch list for being owned by the Chinese military. So it was, hey, man, like you're not, people don't realize that AI is embedded in all these things, right? And so we have had to be super proactive about that. That's a very rambling answer about data safety because it is paramount for us. But as far as the stuff that's relevant for us, um, I think the number one thing that companies need to think about when they're developing like a tech stack or like a suite of products is the integration with the data that you already have as a company. If you bring in some tool that cannot work with the information systems you have in place and you're consistently having to pull data out of your system and upload it in that tool, the adoption rate and the success rate on that is going to be so low because there's friction and barriers to usage. So you need to be looking at your integrations. Um, for the AI world, that's going to be MCPs and APIs, which are super techy, but those acronyms will mean something to your IT department and your AI forward people. For us in a law firm, the thing that we are using the most is a product called Harvey, which is a legal specific AI tool. It's Harvey Specter from the show Suits. If people saw Suits, it is. And there are versions of Harvey that are domain specific, meaning business specific focused, like Blue Jay for tax or Spellbook for M&A. None of them are running their own LLM, the large language model like Gemini or Opus or Claude, which is Opus and Sonnet, or ChatGPT. All of them are taking those LMs and placing what you'll hear referred to as a wrapper over those models and building out infrastructure that matches the workflow of a legal team. So Harvey, the other option that's out there is Legora. That's like the number one and two options kind of in the market for us right now. Um, that is a daily driver for our team here, and I that that ability to use multimodal is the term. Like you can use all the LLMs. I think that's super important for the exact point that you mentioned. If we were a law firm and we were using Claude for legal, and for political reasons, Claude no longer functions, well, what do we do? And so having the current environment for these things, they're moving so fast. Politics is uncertain, and fortunately or unfortunately, depending on where you sit, politics affects how these things work, and the geopolitical situation. I mean, there are competitors from China that are going to face certainly restrictions or scrutiny by American companies, and so having something that can switch horses sort of mid race is very helpful for us as far as comfort that we're going to have the tool available no matter what happens outside of the office.
And what's the tool called again?
It's called Harvey.
Harvey.
Yeah,
Okay, sorry. I heard something else, but yeah, Harvey Specter
yeah,
suit.
well, just like
Yeah.
named after Harvey Specter, named in part after Harvey Specter. But yeah, it's a really fantastic product. It is leveraging the power of Claude and Gemini and ChatGPT to do the work, but it's built by lawyers for lawyers. So when you sit down with it, it understands that you're sitting in a law firm and you're doing legal work, and so it is grounded in that thought process. It is grounded in those workflows. It understands how lawyers use documents and work with data sets. Um, for us, that's a superior choice to sort of like this. I don't want to be unfair to Claude. Claude's incredible, but Claude wasn't built to be used by lawyers. It was built to be a coding system and do other amazing things. And then they built some skills into it that lawyers can use. Now, it's so good that Harvey is using it, but it wasn't built for this task, the specific task. So there is a premium involved in that functionality. But for us, having the workflow be so seamless and so designed to match us where we are has been very valuable to us. We also have Microsoft Copilot, which a lot of people are probably familiar with because it's embedded in your Microsoft Office workflow. We use that for a lot of like marketing and admin productivity, and it does integrate with Harvey. There's integration, so you can bounce back and forth between the two. Um, Harvey also integrates with our document management system, which for us as a firm is Net Documents. There are other options like iManage and SharePoint. Harvey integrates with all those. Back to my first point, you can just when I'm in Harvey, I don't have to go download a document and upload it into Harvey. There's a button I push in Harvey, and it asks where I want to pull the document from, and it's integrated with all our systems, and it pulls it straight in from those systems. So that sort of frictionless use has been really, really important for us. And then we have a separate AI tool that assists us with legal research that again is very bespoke legal use, but it comes from one of the big vendors, Thomson Reuters, and it's fantastic as well. We also have some AI driven solutions for like timekeeping and billing and sort of like operational tasks that are really happy that have made us way more efficient on the back end of stuff. And I think it's easy for a business to focus on sort of like the flashy AI gains and like your frontline stuff, like attorney document drafting. A lot of the stuff that we use on the back end that has helped improve our efficiency across the whole organization have been like the most immediately obvious ROI items. Whereas some of the front facing stuff has really been more quality of life improvements. But it's been a really interesting journey for us as a firm. You know, 2.5 years ago, none of this was in place, and now it'd be really hard to go back to not having some of these things available.
Oh, I 100% agree that, I mean, I am using tools on such a regular basis that I just, the things that I was able to get done today, to prepare for a team meeting on Monday, of just stuff I was able to power through that it would have taken me weeks to write and to think through. And I think that's the biggest thing that, um, I'm sure that you're using it for a lot of contract review and to look things up, et cetera, and to summarize things. But um, I still personally use it as such a thinking tool. Like I think, and for a lot of construction business owners out there that, there's a visionary mindset, and it can just be really hard to synthesize ideas. Like I go for walks early in the morning around a trail around our neighborhood, and what I'll do is I'll just sit there with Otter.ai and I'll record my thoughts, but then later on it's like, okay, we'll synthesize all that for me, and then okay, what are and I'm just brain dumping. I'll walk for 45 minutes and I'll just flat out brain dump, and then it'll build whatever I want it to build. So like if I need to write out an SOP for, something, okay, that there it is. And like that would have taken me, a good week to think pragmatically through like what are steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And instead I just got to brain dump. And so amazing ways to use it. I'm interested, Skyler, because and I love the tool recommendation. Like I love how tangible what you gave was. A big question, all of this, right? That I'm going to kind of deviate to another, point here. Um, Construction's really like contract heavy. Like everything comes back to the contract. The way that the accounting works comes back to the contract. Like everything is so contract driven inside a construction business that all the change orders, everything included. Did you get the right bid? Did you get the contract set up correctly? I guess in all of this that, and I don't mean to be, aggressive in this question, but I'm sure that there's a lot of construction business owners out there thinking, "Well, I don't need to run things by my lawyer anymore, right? Like, I don't need to review things with legal." What's your answer to that? And those that are using, tool I mean, heck, they could be using Harvey. Like, you could have just given away the keys to the castle. What's your answer to the construction business owners that want to review their contracts, want to develop contracts? Why do they still need to be talking to your colleagues at Gray Reed, as an example?
I don't think that's aggressive at all. It's a great question because if we can't answer that question, yeah, I mean, what are we doing, right? But you're right. There is a fantastic use case for contract review with these. If your listeners don't know how to use playbooks that you can build with AI tools to do contract review, we could do 30 minutes on that. But just that's a word they should jot down and look at building out with Claude or anything else, because you could run playbooks that do a really good job of like an initial take to make sure your contracts are consistent and logically complete. Why is a lawyer still valuable if I've got this tool to do it right? I think there's the piece of this that is hard to do right. Even for the tools that are legally focused, like Harvey, there is nuance and human relation that goes to the negotiation process of a contract. And there are business realities that are tied to your business that the AI can't know. It just cannot know the ins and outs of your personal business, your risk tolerance, your what your bank account looks like and what you can absorb as a potential risk and loss. And having an advisor, and when I say advisor, I mean lawyer, because I really hope that the lawyers your listeners are working with are more than just reviewing and redlining contracts. I hope they're advising your clients or your listeners um, from a strategic point of view. And I think having a lawyer, a trusted advisor who understands how the contract's not only going to work but going to fall apart, and that's the piece that I think comes into play so much. The AI can't know how 35 contract disputes have gone because it hasn't been in the courtroom litigating 35 of them, right? It just can't. Maybe someday it will, and maybe the answer will be you don't need a lawyer anymore. I hope not, but maybe someday. We're not there yet. And so what the AI is great about, and this is a point I've made over and over in this role that I have now, there are the efficiency gains and the speed gains, the scalability. There's also like a holistic human gain. Something Mason you just mentioned about like your brain dumping and your the powering through stuff. It is hard to quantify how much of your brain power it takes to redline review a 25-page dense contract. And maybe I do that and I pick up the phone to call the client afterwards and explain to them why they need to lose this indemnity provision or whatever. My brain is operating at like B plus, maybe B minus, because I've been focused on a dense contract for 6.5 hours. Um, if I can take that initial 6.5 hour review and condense it down to 45 minutes, I can then spend 2 hours really whiteboarding a long-term strategy before I pick up the phone and call the client, and I can spend an hour of A plus brain power to the client, and they're still getting a smaller bill at the end of the day. And I have found that I have so much, um, more of, like, the A plus version of me to give to my clients, and what I typically find is, like, that's what clients actually wanna pay me for as a lawyer. They don't wanna pay me for 8 hours of redlining a contract. They don't wanna pay me for 10 hours of in-depth research on a case that they've never read before, or drafting objections to 80 requests for production if you're stuck in litigation. They want to pay me for experience and strategy and nuance and being a true sounding board for should we negotiate this piece, this contract, or should we cave on it? And no, we're not caving. We're trading this chip for that chip because we're going to get them on the back end with this, venue provision or whatever. And your lawyer who's done this 100 times has that immediate human nuance at the forefront. Now, the AI wins because it remembers every comma across 150 pages, and I might forget one on the 70th page. So use the AI for that. 100%. 100%. On the client side, on the attorney side, and heck, you know, have one AI check the other AI. We do that all the time. But that human conversation of, okay, what does this look like fit into your business? And by the way, into the relationship you have with this developer or this builder or this whoever you're working with. Hey, is this your first project at this company? Maybe we should keep that in mind as we do this. Hey, have you done 75 and you've got a huge trust account with this vendor? Then okay, we can be a little bit more aggressive because we're going to be candid with them. That's the piece that I think a good lawyer brings to the table.
No, I don't disagree, and I think, I mean, even from my own practical experience that, um, you know, AI sometimes will just give you the answer you're looking for, right? And it doesn't give you all the questions to consider to properly evaluate the situation. That, and I mean, just, hey, we have a client situation right now that we have outstanding AR that I don't think that they're going to pay us, and I don't think they have an intent to pay us, right? And so, um, I mean, I can dive in and say, okay, well, our service agreement says I can arbitrate in the state of Texas. Like, what are all the procedures to do that? But the question of, and I could even prompt it and say, should I pursue arbitration or what are alternative strategies? But the things that I'm even thinking about, like, again, clients may not be thinking about this stuff. It's like, okay, I already know that client's lender has it's a private lender. They have two general counsel team members on their team. They're already in forbearance with the client. Um, you know, it like things may completely crash here where I could even go pursue arbitration and it may go nowhere because of all these other considerations and factors of the other parties involved, and that what would their intent be and how much weight and leverage do they have. And I guess what I'm saying is, like, I'm probably missing many questions that a lawyer would have, right? That input and context, like, let's view this from a 360 scale, right? And that's where I think it's so important that, like, it can help as a thinking tool, but it may not be able to consider all the context that is really relevant to help make the right decision. I've witnessed too, like, even with that client's lender, that we poked at, hey, like, these actions by the lender, like, they're pretty aggressive. Is this predatory or not? And at first it said not. And I was like, well, give it a little bit more context. And then it did say it was predatory. Like, it switched its mind. And it's like, and it flipped so quickly here. And then, given all of that, then we figured out the lender's not really that predatory. They're just wanting to see action from the client, that they actually complete objectives so that they don't have to foreclose. Like, they want to see the client move on producing some liquidity to pay the bills, and the lender's just trying to get action. They don't actually want to foreclose. And so, given all the context, Claude was wrong, and all these considerations, like, it's a thinking tool. It could still be dead wrong. A person could be dead wrong. It's that idea too, right? That it only has as much context as you give it. And it could probably get better at asking the relevant questions, but still, that would require you, as of today, to write and put text answers, and it may miss elements of context of voice, tone. Like, there's so many, like, we communicate not just through text, we communicate through so many other mediums, and it's missing all of that. I mean, at the end of the day, you and I both know, like, I still think about this. You probably have met people that they just give you the heebie-jeebies, right? Like, you're like, my gut, I don't have the data. My gut says something that this is not a great person to do business with. AI ain't gonna know that,
No,
So,
no, no, yeah.
all that said, so I know I just kind of went on a rabbit trail there, but
But
yeah.
you're dead on. I think one of the things that is hard for people to keep in mind is that these AI chatbots, especially, um, are built to be sycophantic, right? They want your engagement, so they're apt to agree with your point of view. And like the tone of your question about the predatory lender thing, if you're like, "This seems predatory," it wants you to keep engaging. So it's going to tell you, yeah, it does seem. Why don't you tell me more about that versus having a critical. And unless you have stopped to think and in your prompt say, be hypercritical, do not agree with me, analyze this in a vacuum, and like, so if you have to suddenly remember every single time you engage with a tool like this to almost discount yourself or it may disagree, that's why having a specific use case like this on like a legal tool is helpful. But also to your final point, having someone who understands human relationships and truly has been in the room with opposing counsel and in mediations and seen the worst, that is and the thing you said, AI doesn't have a gut instinct. And I'll tell you, man, as a been a lawyer for 15 years, 9 times out of 10, gut instinct is like one of the data points on the board of like, hey, the cadence of the emails you're getting when they take 3 days to respond. I don't think these guys are gonna pay you. Like, because I've seen it 100 times, right? That sort of thing. I there is that and, what's the value to that? Every client gets to decide what the value to that is, that comfort. But one of the things that I always talk to clients about is one of the reasons our rates are what they are is because you're paying for peace of mind and you're paying to be able to go to bed at night and not worry about your big problem. It's our job to worry about that. And AI is not worried about that. AI is not up thinking about solutions. AI is not strategizing how to handle the latest red line from opposing counsel. It's that's not how it works. I'm not blaming it for that. How I work is losing sleep because you've got a problem and I'm here to fix it for you and help you navigate that. There is absolutely stuff like first drafts of change orders or, viewing risk allocation and stuff that AI is great for. Like it's absolutely, and our clients are using it and we're using it. Let's not pretend like that's not happening, right? So being conversant about it and candid about it with your attorney, I think is great. Um, I will give the one like sort of lawyer warning. Um, if you are working with an attorney and they send you a draft of something, do not go drop it into a free AI chat bot because you have just waived attorney-client privilege. And we've had to tell multiple clients like, "Hey, I appreciate these notes. Please don't ever do that again because we've just waived attorney-client privilege." So just having an understanding of how the AI works, about the bias, about the sycophancy, about protection of data, so helpful in making the process fluid. Because law firms, I'll tell you, one of the things that we're having to adjust to is for one of the first times in my memory, a lot of our clients are using the exact same tools that we are. They're using, Claude or a Claude-based system or Gemini or GPT. And so there is sort of a shared language now with clients when lawyers were before were kind of awful. Like, we use Latin in our briefs and we have a special proprietary database that nobody else has and what don't look behind the curtain. Um, there was lawyers liked that sort of black box we lived in, and we've had to get very comfortable with having more candid conversations about what workflows look like and processes look like. I ultimately think that's a good thing because it helps clients understand why their bill is what it is. It understands how we got from A to B on a project. I mean, previously you would get a bill from a lawyer and it might say 17 hours drafting motion for disclosure. If you've never drafted a motion for what, why, how, is that 18 hours normal? Is that good? Is that bad? Depending on how sophisticated or often of a consumer of legal services you are, you might not have a frame of reference for that. Um, Now that we have sort of shared workflows with our clients, one of the coolest things about Harvey that I forgot to mention, it allows you to create shared spaces with your clients. So I can load into like a shared encrypted space everything that we're doing about a case, and I can share that externally with the client and it's still secure and privileged so they can get in and use the same tools that we are to analyze documents or ask questions and look at stuff. And it's suddenly not this black box that we're having to explain at the client. We're able to work with the client on stuff. It's a really cool like addition to what we do. And we really do think of ourselves as advisors and counselors that have personal relationships with our clients. Like I- we're the kind of law firm that like goes to baseball games and has a beer with our clients and with each other. And we're not just here billing and going home and coming back and plugging back in as robots. And so to be able to like literally collaborate with our clients on stuff has been incredibly cool because a lot of our clients are brilliant. They have a deeper understanding of their business than we ever will. And to get to like empower them with tools that help them advance their own case and help them dig into strategy with us. Um, I think a lot of our clients feel a lot more confident about what's happening because they've seen it and they can look at it with us. It's not just a widget behind glass that we're telling them about. It's something that we're doing together. Um, it's been a really cool like sea change in how we think about that.
I could tell the passion, the passion exudes from you about this, man, and I I think most people listening to this will appreciate, that reality of, open transparency in a legal relationship like that, and so, I would love, Skyler, for us to just keep going on for, for hours and hours about where we can go with this. I have a ton of questions, but, at least for this episode, we're gonna kinda, put a pause here and maybe we do another episode at some point in the future. But I just want to thank you because I love the tangible advice, like some of the tools that you gave. But the tangible advice and the takeaways here of how people should be engaging with their lawyers, what they should expect now in the world of AI, et cetera. That just super appreciate you having you on the show and having all your insights here, brother. So thank you so much.
Absolutely, man. My pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Until next time, everybody. See ya.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. So, if you enjoyed today's episode and you found value, or it raised some questions for you about the next best steps for managing your finances in your construction business, please reach out to us at bradycfo.com. There's a contact page there where you can fill out, and that will come straight over to us. Either that, or you can personally find me on LinkedIn. My name is Mason Brady, and feel free to send me a message. And happy to chat and talk through anything you're facing today, and happy to provide some advice. So, thank you all. Appreciate it.